Old cue. There it is. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Bienvenidos, one and all. It is March. Oh my gosh, how did we get here? And nevertheless, here we are in Cultivating Voices Live Poetry for our first reading of the month. Always our first Sunday is our Poets Focus, and today our Poets Focus is on inclusion. As I always like to say, you folks are the features. Every one of you are the stars as we do our open mic. Folks will be reading for up to 5 minutes apiece for our first 12 featured readers. And then we will go to a waiting list if we have time, and if I do my job well, we will get to folks on that waiting list and hear as many voices as we can, being as inclusive as we can be today, getting as many voices as we can on the program. We go till the half hour on the next hour. So I like to say a few things about Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to those of you joining us live here in our Zoom poetry studio. Those of you watching live on Facebook right now with us, and those of you, the hundreds of you that watch every week, and we know because we're able to see our little analytics, and to see that folk, and those of you who contact Don, Kim, or I during the week with your comments and gratitudes for the readers from week to week. So we're very, very grateful for all the connections that you provide when we're here together live on Zoom and on Facebook, but also all the ways that you participate through the Facebook group, and as well by watching the recordings. And of course, those recordings are due to the diligence and dedication of Don Krieger, and the person that gets you all here to this program most Sundays with her beautiful graphics and announcements, Kim Ports Parsons. I can't give enough shout outs to these two individuals for their deep dedication to thank you to Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Folks, we are now up to over 4,600 members worldwide on the Facebook group. We are an intergenerational, intersectional, international group of poets. We began in March. This is our anniversary month, March of 2020. The end of March was our first reading, March 29th of 2020. So we're coming up on our 4th year. And as I like to say, I have been the most fortunate beneficiary of the best seat in the house for poetry from week to week due to all of your remarkable voices and your love and dedication to love of poetry. So today we're going to get to hear some of that love of poetry with our Poets Focus on Inclusion. As I mentioned, each of our first 12 readers will have up to 5 minutes to read, and then we will move to our waiting list. Well, up first today from LA, we've been talking about where in California, is Deanna Dark. And I'm just always, always love it when we're able to connect here on Cultivating Voices, because we used to be able to connect when we were on the campus of Evergreen together. So thank you so much for starting us off today, and it's so great to see you.
No, thank you for cultivating my voice at Evergreen. I appreciate that. So, I am sharing a poem today from an event I helped organize in August in Denver, which was a queer fusion dance weekend, partner dance weekend. And so it was a very kind of interesting combination of people. I'm not really a dance instructor, but I'm a poet. And so for my experiences of that weekend, I kind of synthesized a lot of things into my interpretation of the event. It does quote at the end Antonio Machado's Caminante no hay el camino, which is travelers, there is no road. A little bit of a change on it though. There is some light swearing, but and it's fairly modern. So, and I'm going to put it in the chat if anyone wants to follow along reading. It's called Kaleidoscope Creatures. Butch, Dami, Muscle Mommy, teaching us to fuck the floors. Are the floors purgante? Stomping grounds of the perennial outsiders, building community in spaces shared, rooms and foods and cuddle puddles in N+1 floofs and whispered care. A blue-haired they reminds me of my home. They are familiar with where I used to dance. Home it is that I feel here, dancing close with all these queers. I am lifted, body and spirit, by a dancer half my size. Their body fulcrum and lever, upon them I could move the world. Liberation found in steps unknown, twirling to fusions of ritual and invitation. Violence cannot find that which is transcendental. Partnered, triples, cues of 12, weaving leading into following hands and limbs and backs and spins. I find myself in the mix of reflections. Mirrors of self, refractions of affinities, brief infinities through which my light can shine and create shapes with which to undefine, unlearn, and find who am I when I am safe. I am safe at home. Bailarinos, no hay pista de baile. Bailarinos son tus movimientos, el baile y nada más. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Deanna Dark. Baile, baile, baile. That's right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for, I love the strength and the tenor and the exuberance that comes through your voice. I really, oh, and I love that poem. That's fantastic. Um, I I'll just put this out here, the year is moving along very quickly, and pretty soon it's going to be June, and in June we of course have our Poetry Pride Parade. So mark that down. That's going to be June 16th this upcoming year. June 16th, I'm going to be reaching out to you, and maybe you'll read that poem again. I love that poem. Beautiful for our Poets Focus today on inclusion. Well, next, another dear friend from Olympia joining us, and I was able to run into Ken the very first day I was on campus in Olympia. And before I have Ken come and share Ken's set, I will just remind you that the chat is live here on our Zoom studio. The chat's also live in Facebook, of course, and I love it when people on Facebook leave their enthusiastic comments for folks. And so I encourage you to do so, of course, respectful comments, and show the love and appreciation for today's poets. And as you're reading today, if you feel that it warrants it, feel free to provide a content notice if you feel that that would be in service to our listeners today. Well, as I mentioned, next up is Ken Burch, and then we'll move on to Mary Ellen Talley. Welcome, Ken. Good to see you and hear you, and I'm glad that you're becoming more familiar with your new laptop.
It's good to be here, Sandy, and good to be here, everyone. This is this poem, which I'm just calling inclusion, maybe with a question mark on the end, is an example of, I guess I would call it a semi-free write. which is fitting because we're in a semi-free country, sort of looking at what would be inclusion. When anyone can watch the movie that they paid far too much to watch with and next to their own kids at the multiplex near the home they paid for with their savings, and at last see, at least on that screen in that block of their lives, faces which look like the faces they do see in the mirror at the start of each day. Not that seeing faces like theirs is anything like actually being allowed to fully be the makers of the screen show, the DVD, the streamed image, or the video game, or that which they actually do outside the game, and not hear cold, bitter, pale laptop toddlers in seated bodies rage frothing that anyone not in the image of the toddlers, or at least the image they imagine themselves to actually have, as opposed to the one they actually see in mirrors, not that they actually truly reflect, the image they still yet assume the God, which may or may not exist at all, was created in by their terrified bully egos. That anyone not them is allowed to be seen as being worth being seen, because as the laptop sees it, they will cease to be seen if they are no longer all that is seen, and scream and sneer and threaten acts they may not have the strength to actually carry out, though their AK-47s always will have, unless all faces not like theirs vanish yet again, and only those they think they have are seen on screen and off screen forever. When anyone can live their lives knowing through all, they will never live without roofs, live without meals, live without respect, live without song, live without value, live without life, can know deeply they will be from their dawning to their turning into whatever is or is not beyond what is in this is. What they are, who they are, what they do will be seen as of worth, as much worth, if not more, as those who walk smugly by them, screaming at rag-cloth souls, flesh not clean because no means of cleansing are allowed, or night is slow death. Yet same flesh, same tissue, cells of us all, whose heart torn, mangled, scabbed, as shared by us, except for those who sneer, or of those not yet satisfied by the sneering, by the insults, by the curses, who aim spittle or other liquids, bullets in the night, at those who, we must recall, were once children as we were. Because if we cease to recall this, we cease to be human in any sense. Because those who do not, in their fossil-minded, empty-chested fury at what, really, at what could be us all with small changes on our luck, seeing the targets of their anger as the Vietnamese village they must destroy to save? When anyone can step outside at any time of the day as they are on the arm of the one they must love, they must die while yet living if made to renounce and pretend to be only that they are allowed by others to pretend to share life with, though the pretense can only destroy the one forced into the cage of the lie and the one forced to share the cage. When anyone can wear the raiments of their truth as they go on their way through each day without anyone anywhere inciting storms of fire and blood, seeding the clouds with unseen particles of lies about non-existent, vile intent, plots to turn youth into what they cannot be turned into, that which they can only be if they always were. When anyone can drive the car that they bought with their money down the street to their home that they bought with their savings, and no more just be assumed by the neighbors or the police the neighbors unnecessarily called to be there only and for no other possible reasons, since in the minds of the unnecessary callers there could be no other possible reason at all but illicit, illegal intent necessitating without a moment of hesitation an instant of reflection, a nanosection of introspection, the call to eliminate the imaginary threat with extreme prejudice. And I do mean extreme prejudice. Only when all of that, so much more, beyond all of that has come to be, can we use the term inclusion as a word in present tense. Thank you.
That is Ken Burch, everyone, on our Poets Focus with his poem Inclusion for our Poets Focus today on inclusion. We are going to be updating very shortly, I think, our set list for today for our featured readers. I see if you are interested in reading and you have not signed up yet, or if you signed up through a private mechanism, please do put your name in our chat and Kim will grab that and we'll be updating our set list for our reading today. Well, next is Mary Ellen Talley, and again, it was so great to see you. And last night in Kirkland, Washington, and I'm excited because Mary Ellen has a new book upcoming as well. So we look forward to celebrating with you in this new year.
Okay.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see you. Okay. I'm coming at inclusion from the traditional sense of special education, which I was in for 40 years, where we started inclusion and now it has expanded. I have two short poems about high school students with acquired disabilities through brain damage. This one is called Zipper Villanelle. And I worked as a speech pathologist, so I was support staff as they were entering back into school. Zipper Villanelle. Black punk jacket he grabs in hand. It should be simple to straighten up and zip it. Months after his coma, he can barely stand, let alone insert a zipper with his grasp. He ran to catch a bus, but missed it. Black punk jacket he grabs in hand, demands economy of motion and a plan. The awkward rising arm, he can't fix it. Months after his coma, he can barely stand. Memory says hold metal low, but he barely can. Remove jacket fabric stuck in zipper, finally pull it. Black punk jacket he grabs in hand. High school recovery and lessons to cram. The slow burn of muscles, he learns to handle it. Months after his coma, he can barely stand. Skull and crossbones across his wingspan. Slow slog to his walker, but he endures it. Months after his coma, he can barely stand. Black punk jacket he grabs in hand. And that was published in Kaleidoscope, a journal for disabilities. And my second and last poem, thank you, is called High School Aviary, and it was published in Cirque. It's about two very different young women meeting each other who both have disabilities, but I just had put them together because they had something in common. High School Aviary. What she-birds prop themselves up in my office? One girl's wheelchair gives clue of handicap, and the stoma valve from which she releases built-up air in her stomach, acidic vault absorbing nutrients without taste via G-tube. She, however, relishes pizza or chocolate just as before her stroke of unluck. She tells of returning all that taste to a napkin, chew and spit without swallow. I fashion her to be lilac-crowned parakeet. The other girl who has parked her crutch near the door, a canary, her clues of tremor less apparent. Bystanders assume this one's flight recovery will breach the aviary net swiftly, until repeated introductions place memory in her basket of discards. They are such elements of emu and ostrich now, the landed birds, stranded with their mothers. Call them robin, brambling, or black-capped pygmy tyrant. The plumage of names scatters across my brain. Both girls brace on office chairs to perch, as when they branched out younger into air that knew only the enclosure of ordinary awkward. In today's story, two birds introduce their injured wings just before releasing streams of inquiry and coincidence. I listen, they warble. Thank you.
That is a great double whammy of a set from Mary Ellen Talley. Thank you for those poems. Oh, Zipper Villanelle, what a great title for a poem. I have a little thing for double consonants. I love the use of double consonants wherever it can be. Fantastic, really great work, and congrats on those publications. Two very, very strong publications, and one in your field in particularly, and then Cirque. Of course, those of you who don't familiar with Cirque is a journal of art and literature and the Pacific Rim. Love that. Sandy Clevin is the editor, and she's been traveling around and doing a lot. Hope we'll see her on the program soon enough. Well, next we're gonna move a little bit inward, moving across the country a little bit. We're gonna go over to Billy Brown over there in Albuquerque. Welcome, Billy. Good to see you. And I know you're always active with Fixed and Free. So good. Thank you for making the time to join us today.
Sure, and thanks to everyone who organized this, and particular greetings to Sandy and to, I'm not seeing all your names, so I may say this later. McGowan, Martina McGowan, and Don Krieger for being on our schedule of featured poets later this year. Looking forward to that very much. Also, I just put into the chat information about our next reading and the fact that our newest issue of the quarterly is just going to be out on Tuesday. So I guess my provisional title for this poem is 3 Riffs on Inclusion. And I'm starting with some lines from Edwin Markham, who happened to be Poet Laureate of Oregon from 1923 to 1931. Edwin Markham, he drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in. This morning, walking through a crowd of younger, vibrant, athletic folks dancing to loud music in the street, I pause to observe them. One of them asks, "Would you like to join us?" I say, "Tell you what, if I can include some of you in my monthly poetry readings, then you can include me in your dancing." They all point to a guy saying, "Mark is a poet." So Mark and I exchange names, contact information. I'll include Mark in my next Fixed and Free reading, and they'll include me in next Sunday's dancing. Sitting at my desk, grading statistics students' exams, wondering where in heaven's name some of them got the ill-advised answers they wrote, wondering how they could have left some answer spaces blank. When I gave them sample exams similar to the exam they took, when I carefully went through all the solutions to all of the problems on those sample exams, and they were all included in that review session, I realized that included in some of their lives are complexities I have rarely experienced or even conceived. Full-time job while being a full-time student, financial hardships, food insecurity, housing insecurity, recent deaths in their families, COVID, a car crash, the terror of taking a statistics exam from such a scary, much older instructor. I want to include them all in my well wishes and my hopes for them and their loved ones to thrive. Sitting on the couch, out of breath after a long walk, ending with a sprint, looking out the window, seeing the strong winds fluttering our Tibetan prayer flags, I realize the molecules of air I now breathe include molecules breathed by all my neighbors, their dogs and cats, include molecules from Texas, from Mexico, molecules exhaled in their last breaths by refugees just drowned in the Rio Grande, trying to escape the terror of their homeland, molecules breathed by Israelis attacked on October 7th, molecules breathed desperately by Palestinians in Gaza, beings now alive, recently and not so recently deceased, Vladimir Zelensky, Vladimir Putin, Vlad the Impaler, Mohammed, Buddha, Jesus Christ, Genghis Khan. Thankful to all living beings for the oxygen and nitrogen they share with me, grateful including me with their recycled air, and thank you all for sharing your breathed air and including me in cultivating voices.
That is Billy Brown. Always one to bring people in, always one to bring people in. Thank you, Billy. And do be looking out, everyone, for the Fixed and Free anthology. Billy is very, very good about posting to the Cultivating Voices page. If you've not been able to grab one in the past few years, I highly recommend it. You'll be astounded and not surprised to see the diversity of names and a number of them members of Cultivating Voices. Always grateful to you creating those spaces, Billy.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, next is Glenda Cimino, and I always look forward to when I have the pleasure of hearing one or possibly two of your poems today. Welcome, Glenda. And then Glenda will be followed by Don Krieger.
So sorry, muting
No.
all the way. I said I'm going to read some earlier poems. It's like inclusion, exclusion, how they connect together. So the first poem's called Roots. And I would say that I wrote this when I was 24, and I've since found that I had roots and just didn't know it. But this is about trying to feel included and not feeling included. Roots. If only I could find some small secluded place to plant myself and let my thoughts grow through me from my roots. Now my thoughts float weightless. They tangle in midair, bump the ceiling of my mind and scatter down, rise up again, a futile exercise. Something is missing, some part of me unknown, not working. I am disconnected from myself, and in my heart, as everywhere, there is a blind spot. There is a road whose end I cannot see, a long road where the light follows a little too far behind, and darkness falls too soon. There is a journey I do not understand, some terror I cannot escape by running, moving restless through the cities of the earth. I carry heavy inside me this deep emptiness. Roots would help. I cannot grow them by myself. Sometimes I throw myself on the soft summer grass and feel the whole earth, rootless, spinning, spinning, spinning underneath. Another poem, shorter poem here is this is about, I hope this doesn't, this is, maybe I won't read this one because it's about suicide. It's also about psychic connections between people. So should I read it? I wrote it after not writing much poetry on the night when a friend of mine had committed suicide, and I didn't know it, but I wrote this poem, which I believe was a dialogue, a spiritual dialogue with him. It's called Thinking of Going, for Henry, 1958 to 1986. Somewhere, someone else is up tonight, pacing the floor and thinking of going, but where? I feel it with my feet. I'd like to say it's no worse here nor any better anywhere else than people make it. To focus one's own life into a point of light, to have an eye always for what can become. Breathe yourself deep into calm, out of claustrophobia. And I hear, I've got to get out of the hold. The ship is sinking, and the captain, lost somewhere aboard, is me. Now, I have another poem by time about a friend of mine who felt very isolated in his family. And it's called Old. Is that okay? It's
Yeah,
called.
go right ahead.
I got two short poems about different people. Old photographs. One day it struck him like a blow. How in the family photographs he always unconsciously stood out, sitting while they stood, standing while they sat, a slight distance removed. He was the child always looking away. He didn't know if he was seeing for the first time the result or the cause, remembering how he longed to be an orphan, how he had knitted this wish in his heart until time, death, and space pulled the strands apart. And the last one is called What the Court Clerk Said. It's about a Lakota woman talking about her life when I met her on the Rosebud Reservation many years ago. And it's about how we can be included in things we don't want to be included in and lose the things that we were included in. What the court clerk said. When I was a girl, the land was free. We had our houses far apart and we rode horses. There was no dam and the river flowed freely. I never saw a policeman and a white man seldom, which was often enough. We spoke our own beautiful words. Today our houses are back to back with cement in between. There are not so many horses. The river is gone. There are many police, many white men, many drunken Indians. My children go to school. They learn English and forget their own tongue. I must work here, and my husband is a policeman. Thank you. You are mute.
And sometimes when I'm on, messages are coming across and it blocks my mute button, and that's what was going on. I'm trying to get to the mute button. That is Glenda Cimino. Thank you so much for those 4 poems. And folks, we are here on our Cultivating Voices live poetry first reading of the month. And that is always our Poets Focus. And today we are, we're truly being gifted with numerous poems already from a very prismatic perspective on the word inclusion. Well, Don Krieger said this a little earlier, I think about Don Krieger, which is that mostly everything that Don is writing about is about inclusion in one way or another. So, you know, this is as they say in legal terms, this is like on point reading for you today. Topic. Thank you, Don, for everything that you do for Cultivating Voices. but also all the ways that, you bring poetry and consciousness to many, many stages around the world that you participate in. Don's so humble, he might not have even known that I was talking about him. So there you
sorry.
go.
So
No,
sorry
that's
about
okay.
that.
I
Yeah.
understand. I understand. Yeah.
Thanks, Sandy. And thanks everyone for being here. No one was there. A young white man killed 8 last week to save himself from temptation. 7 were women: Hyunjung Grant, Sun Cha Kim, Yang Ai Wei, Zhao Ji Tan, Sun Chung Park, Dao Yu Feng, Delana Ashley Yon, and Paul Andre Michel. We shopped today at the Pious Bookshop, bought Seder plates for the kids, packed in a clean pizza box with secondhand bubble wrap. Passover is this weekend. They had coffee mugs and fridge magnets, skull caps with slogans, "We are stronger together," and "No place for hate." As if it was this morning, I remembered passing security for the funeral, the line blocks long down Darlington Road. 11 unorthodox killed at the Tree of Life. I longed for the others, the pious, to be with us together down Darlington Road, and at the cemetery later, their beards, black coats, and tzitzit, but no one was there. As if you're not Orthodox, you're not a Jew, as if it matters that the murdered are. Lot's wife died nameless for being unmale. And I have one other. I think there's time here. This will work. Ground Zero. In November 2023, Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital came under repeated Israeli attacks as a suspected Hamas command center and hostage transshipment hub. In the ensuing weeks, the 50,000 refugees sheltered there and many patients, including 31 premature babies, were evacuated to save their lives. On that sunny morning in August 1945, Shima Hospital held only unwhites with strange faces and customs, no hostages or anyone else of value. Why not incinerate the 80,000 in and around it and doom 200,000 more to something slower and crueler? 200 yards to the west, the city's commercial exhibition hall braved the hellfire and still stands. Today, Hiroshima is reborn with 10 times the population it had when America killed it. Shima Hospital was rebuilt where it stood, but the scorched walls of the exhibition hall remain naked, a testimony to the resilience of European handiwork, to the defiance of life in the face of wholesale murder, all embodied in the dogged tolerance of stone for insufferable heat. Leaf-clad stone ramparts, phoenix trees at River's Fork, deciduous souls. And one more very short, which was actually nominated for a pushcart by the Origami Poetry Project. Strange days. I woke to the governor's stay-at-home order, drove the turnpike anyway, each cop we passed, and there were many, I thought of my white Subaru and my skin like 1,000 times before.
That is Don Krieger, everyone. 3 power-filled poems. What else can I say? It is our poet's focus today on the word inclusion. We go now over to Israel with Isaac Cohen. I'm always very grateful when you're able to join us, Isaac. I hope you are well this evening.
Dear Sandy, dear Kim, dear Don, Cohen, love. Our eyes reflect in the lake. Our bodies unite like Cupid's arrow. The moon knows that our scientific soul go to heaven for peace of mind. And the other, I am a peace. I send you a kiss. I live with amuses, flew on the lake. I shed pure water of love and unit all the world. I am a peace. You can sense the peace. And there, that, wait a minute. Other Cohen, future. The water makes the sky fly. My soul hopes for the future. And I hope all the people are in peace and love and all the all the time. Thank you.
That is Isaac Cohen. Thank you. With always your messages and poems of peace. So profound, so profound. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this may be Frederick Livingston's first reading on the program today. If I'm mistaken, my apologies. And if I am not mistaken, a most hearty welcome to you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I was glad I was able to finally, make it happen. I grew up in Olympia, but I'm in Corvallis right now. I was trying to rifle through my poems to figure out the best one for inclusion, but I think I'll read maybe 2 short ones. I work as an ecologist doing education programming in prisons, and some of the most excluded people that I know are the inmates that I work with. The first one is called Metamorphosis, and it's from the women's prison near Portland, Oregon, where we grow native plants to feed to endangered butterfly larvae that are grown on site. This is called Metamorphosis. The crew cradles over furtive whirls of tender February green, because larvae waking need feeding heartbeat flickering within lanterns of skin. Captive humans now outnumber wild checker spots in Oregon. Years in concrete chrysalis meant to reform bones. Cold months dreaming and weeks feasting traded for days of burning miracles. All things wither, both butterflies and prisons. But what we nurture determines which endures. The women bring their harvest to the lab, drink nectar of metaphor heavy as wet wings, witness freedom as the ache of all breathing beings. And then I could read a very short one from Snake River Correctional Institution, which is like on the border with Idaho and Oregon. It's a men's minimum security prison. That's called Yarrow. Rasp in the man's throat, asks the name of these silver feathers sprouting from gravel path, asks if he can lift its life where feet won't go, because he knows hope roots where we grow and wants to give this one a chance. Thank you for having me.
Wow, those are two astounding poems. Kim, you agree with me? I saw you. Wow. Yep, that's right. That's Frederick Livingston, everyone. Thank you so much. Come back, read more poetry. Want to hear your voice and what you have to share. And thank you for all the work that you are doing in your communities based on what you've just shared with us about what you're doing out there in Corvallis. Such important work that you're doing and putting voice to it into the poems. Really so glad that you're able to make it today, and I look forward to the next time that we all get to hear you. It's again, I like to always give a little extra shout out when a person first arrives on the program, and wow, what a powerful debut here on our Poets Focus on Inclusion. Thank you so much, Frederick.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Well, joining us from up north in Canada, Max Vandersteen. Always good to see you and have you come off your perch from your stroll of poets to share some poems with us on Cultivating Voices. I'm glad to see you, my friend, and look forward to hearing your poems today.
Thank you, Sandy. Good to see everybody here. I do enjoy joining in on Sundays when I can. The stroll does keep me pretty busy, but there's always good poetry to hear here, so I enjoy taking part. I'd like to share a few poems that all happen to be in the same book that I put out in 2013. The book is called Iguanas of El Rey. But this first poem is called Grace the Rhythm. Minutes we have met with and counted by the tears that have been cried elapse and evolve into hours of sharing a dream that hasn't died. Days we've encountered, building together in faith and in sweat, revolve and we resurface with courage, a love to celebrate and resurrect. All the years of doubt in lives counted by the friends that have passed collapse as our hopes are enriched with these memorable moments that last. The instant of the occurrence, remembered by the friendships that were formed, captured day in and day out as our homes and lives are transformed, is a second so sealed for eternity, yet repeated so often in our history, recycling through this life of love, directed or destined from above. How many tears would God have seen? How many years would God have been a witness to the misuse of land, abuse of life, perpetuating the cycle of poverty, indignity, and strife? How many prayers has God heard? How many hearts has God stirred in response to the rebuilding power of love and giving, renewing again and improving our living. Time and again, the links in the chain are lengthened and strengthened when the load is shared and the suffering time is spared. Do we arrive where we start at the time that we depart? Or can we stop the cycle with a new revolution where the constant will always be the regenerating love of you and me? This next poem is called Harmony. I make this motion with my pen, endeavoring to put an end to my silent charade, wanting to return not, my friend, to the emotional parade, but simply writing and strongly wishing to recreate the wanting word that language has failed to communicate, the naturally implanted seed and man's elemental need for harmony. The quests and questions, acceptance or exceptions that comprise and compromise also contradict our inner nature. The seeming simplicity taken for granted is yet so elusive. If communication is a stimulus for celebration between us, then let love convince the voice of the exclusive and be proof and poem of our harmony. If you could only reach me, if you could only teach me to hear you openly, to touch you honestly and humanly, to share our joys and pains, to celebrate our lives and loves, then could we, my friend, revel in Earth's beauty and share its wealth in harmony. Now, one more short one, if I can. It's called Triad. What's to do except renew to command the fueling desire? In wishful mind, full body will unite. So come again and school a design for destiny. What's the way they always say they need you for a friend? Shed a smile, just a sob away. Said, come again, till you reciprocally believe in me. We should know the way to go, together if we're not aligned. Love perfects the trilogy, that theology of man. Say, come again, come, my friend, to create the ship between us. Thank you all.
Oh my gosh, I love that last line of that last poem. As most folks know, I do have just a slight little thing for ships, a slight little thing for ships. Thank you. That's Max Vandersteen, everyone. Well, I want to give a special shout out to our next reader on the open mic, Mike Jurkovic, who is one of the co-hosts, founder of Calling All Poets series in the Hudson Valley area of New York, celebrating just this year its 25th year, and there was an extraordinary celebration on Friday night, Eastern time zone. And I was just so happy to be able to be a part of that over Zoom. I wish I could have been in there in person, but that'll happen soon enough. So I want to just say again, congratulations publicly again here while we have the recording going, Mike, and thanks for all that you have done and continue to do to amplify and bring voices together. I mean, that's what inclusion is about. So thanks for joining us today on our Poets Focus on Inclusion. And following Mike will be Maeve McKenna.
Well, I'm going to try and read once I stop blushing. Thank you for all that. Thank you for the kind words. And I put it up in the post. Visit us anytime you can, www.callingallpoets.net. We Zoom, we live stream, we're in person. So check us out when you can. I see some familiar names here. They know what we're doing. So I'm taking the idea of inclusion two different ways. I mean, we're all writers and poets here, so I'll take it from that way. And then we all have neighbors, and I'll take it from that way. And this one's called In Certain States. Coming to the last page of any notebook is an antsy arrival and departure for me. How far outside the guidelines will this one fall? What standardized email will announce, unfortunately, your work is unsuitable for Bixby Beige. Our editors were not thrilled by your verbiage, nor moved to compassionately consider your cultish use of simile, semaphore, and ruin. Quite frankly, we're insulted you even presented your work to us. But if you'd like to subscribe to Bixby Beige, please consider a $25 two-year membership, tax deductible in certain states. And this other one, we all have neighbors, and we all know the divisions in our country. We don't have to go into it. And this is called One of Them. A certain suburban gonad twister and his scorpion maid buy the house next door, and there's no playing field long enough. No playing field wide enough to escape his agitation, the mechanical slur of his fictional lawn, his new rude machine that cuts the land his imperial way. He's one of those gearheads who RPM and revs you awake each Saturday morning at 8 a.m., hoards lawn jockeys and talks to his tools. Yeah, he's one of them who I wouldn't have dreamed to call one of them that weekend at Woodstock, Newport, Monterey. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you again, Mike Jurkovic. And I love what Billy Brown said. Billy Brown said, "Oh, 25 years, what a long time." And like, I've only been doing Fix It Free for, I want to get the number right now as I'm looking at it, 15 years. I mean, that's nothing to joke about either.
It takes a while. I mean, believe me, there were years along the way where the three of us were kind of, who's ever been with us along the way have kind of like, oh God, do we got to do this another? But we've held it together somehow.
Yeah, a real testament to the work in your community, and yeah, to all of you out there that that are contributing in this ways. And I'm thinking about JP Howard down in Brooklyn also, and is in the double digits, and certainly a Wednesday night poetry out of Hot Springs, Arkansas. I think is over 30 years continuous. It's just really, really an amazing thing. So thank you, one and all. Well, our next reader, Maeve McKenna, I'm excited to see you today, and I'm anticipating the excitement that I have in that Kim and I are gonna actually get to meet you in person in Sligo in April. So here's a preview of all the love to come in April, and I'm glad you could be with us tonight.
Thanks so much, Sandy. It's great to see you. It's great to be here. And Kim and Don, thank you so much again for another wonderful night of poetry. And yeah, we're looking forward to finally meeting in person. So yeah, plans are afoot. Watch this space, as they say. I just popped in. I don't often be home on Sunday evenings with work, but so yeah, and I just thought, well, okay, I'll read. And so I've rooted out just two poems, one a very short one and another one that's going to be published soon. And I'm thinking on inclusion and also International Women's Day. So the first poem, and I thought of this poem is about grief, and I thought grief is very inclusive because it includes us all at some point. And I certainly spent an awful lot of time in the woods, and trees are my thing, and they've helped me really through some very difficult times. So this first poem is called Sea Sound in Tree. Crossing is still, a cartel of stillness, a current passed over, each column a buttoned coat, the moon a currency of care, a coin. Counsel the tree, each branch a clinic, camp there. The bark entered, cambion concealed, centuries repeated, a caller repeating, repeated, your name not even cold. Thank you. And this second poem is, it's a poem about my mother, who I think of every day, but I think particularly when we celebrate International Women's Day. My mother was a wonderful mother, a very complex person, and probably ahead of her time. And she found the constraints, certainly in Ireland in the 50s and 60s and 70s, of women's place in the home. And she was a great fan of movie stars and glamour. She was a very glamorous woman, and in some way her life was stifled, I suppose. We never felt that from her, but we probably know it now later on. So this is called My Mother and Shirley Bassey. So Shirley Bassey, I don't know if she was big in America, but she was a huge star, certainly here in Ireland and the UK. She was very glamorous, and my mother adored her. So this poem is called My Mother and Shirley Bassey. By 8 p.m, her body was an episode of corsets, bone on bone woven from a frock she'd unsnap. The TV screen dazzled with sequins and bodices, my mother's shiny ringlets of empty curls dulled by nights lost on cushions she spent her days puffing. I watched her eyes beam, cleavage emerging from an old cardigan, grabbing her only black dress from behind the sofa as we waited for the first Shirley Bassey show on Saturday night. I heard the gurgle of her diets, her hunger as she sat up to inhale her chin, neck flexed, singing a verse of I who have nothing, a stick of claret lipstick, a microphone at her lips, belting harmonies against shadows in that poorly lit room. She was happy, I want to tell you, even if I couldn't know. And I was important on these evenings, with instructions to refill the bottle of vodka under the tap, snatched from under the stairs where my father hid things before he returned home. She rose, swayed in movements unusual to me, a whirlpool of clinking ice cubes, waving the brimming tumbler like a baton. And once she wrapped me in her fox stole, told me I was beautiful, invited me to dance while she lip-synced the chorus over and over. Arms outstretched wings, taut calves bowing at the applause. The red of her cigarette tip, tears at the encore. Thank you.
Oh boy, Kim, we're gonna have to absolutely pinch ourselves when we are. It's like we're not gonna believe that we're in the same room as Maeve McKenna hearing poetry. Wow. Thank you so much, Maeve, and yeah, thank you, for everything. And I really appreciate what you said about grief being, an inclusive space. I mean, it's something that that we all experience, and in our myriad ways, and in that prismatic way, it certainly fits with our theme for today. If you've just joined us, we are having our first reading of the month. It is our Poets Focus on the word inclusion. We are now going over to Dianne Knox, who I got to meet last night in Kirkland. What? Oh my gosh. I have to say, folks, when I get to meet one of the members of Cultivating Voice in person, for the first time, or even the 10th time, I don't care how many times, but I don't know, the first time has a little extra shine on it. I just get giddy. Can you tell? I'm like still feeling it from last night, right? So thanks, Dianne, for like sticking with the reading last night. It was a really long event. It was great. And then coming right back on today. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your poems today and you sharing them with others, because you were just spectacular last night.
Well, nothing is more inclusive than cultivating voices. Nothing. This is called We Are Not Different, You and I, a villanelle. We are not different, you and I. Science has spoken by sequencing chromosomes. Our blood connects our eye. You view black, I view white. Magnified microscope maps our genomes. We are not different, you and I. We flow together, then go awry. Relationships depart, then come back home. Our blood connects our eye. We look at life and sometimes sigh, miss the lessons, then we moan. We are not different, you and I. To our similarities, we are blind. Our humanity is in the code and ohm. Our blood connects our eye. We overlook connections that bind, avoid commitment, end up alone. We are not different, you and I. Our blood connects our eye. Thank you.
That is Dianne Knox. Oh, another villanelle today. The villanelle, what a beautiful, beautiful form. We should do a feature sometime, just do a Poets Focus on villanelle sometimes. And so those of us who don't write them can learn from those who do routinely write them, or not routinely. There's nothing routine about a villanelle. Oh my gosh. And of course, that the second say the word villanelle, I can't help but think of Elizabeth Bishop and her Villanelle One art. So maybe a future Poets Focus on villanelle. Well, folks, we're cruising today. We're cruising through, and we've got two more folks on technically now our wait list, but because of the time that we have, please feel free to use up to 5 minutes, because we've got it. So Catherine Ronan and then Mona Lynch, and then I will close us out with a poem in anticipation of International Women's Day.
Hi everyone. Thanks Sandy, Kim and Don. I'm going to read a poem that's in my book, Elemental Skin. I thought about inclusion from the point of before you can be inclusion. Currently in Ireland is the inclusion of refugees and migrants. A lot of refugees coming from war-torn areas. So I took the poem Migration as my poem for this evening. So migration. She carries everything in a blue and white canvas bag. Dust dances in ochre circles. Searing heat erupts on her hairline. Sweat rivulets to her armpits. She seeks shade under a Joshua tree. Others keep walking to the unknown. Taking out the last hope, bread and goat's milk, A tiny sweaty hand touches her shoulder. Mama, mama. Torn t-shirt, grubby grey ankle pants. Tears say you are not my mother. Tears say you are not my son. A half smile says we need each other. She takes the bread from her mouth, feeds him like a chick, holds him like her own.
Is Catherine Ronan, and again, anticipation awaits us. We're gonna get to meet Catherine over in Kim and I in West Cork, well, Limerick, and a few different locations in April. And of course, everybody, we will be joining you, bringing Cultivating Voices to you from Ireland. So those of you in Ireland who are used to watching all of our shenanigans here from the States, we get to flip the switch and we get to host a party over there while folks over in the States are watching. So we look forward to those evenings over in April. We'll have all 3 of our April programs from Ireland. Really looking forward to that. Well, now our final reader for today is Mona Lynch. Great to have you with us as always. Yeah, I love your voice. I love your voice. So take it away, close us out, and then, as I said, folks, we'll have a final poem from me and a couple of announcements, and then we'll be off on our rest of our days and evenings. Welcome, Mona.
Thank you, Sandy and Kim and Don. I love your shenanigans on a Sunday night. And this poem is about a grandson, an 8-year-old grandson who visited us here in Ireland for the first time this Christmas. He would be Irish-Native American. It's called Liam Og. We live in different worlds, my grandson and I. He comes to taste the sea on his toes, the juice of berries, the lick of warm rain. The world he re-enters with his maternal grandmother under Shiprock Mountain, a spectacular diatribe where the sand forever shifts. She carried him in a cradle board, taught him his mother tongue, a secret code. I want to see their silver gifts grafted, embedded with turquoise gems. I will join the doll dance, wrapped in a Navajo blanket. Sit in the hogan, facing the sunrise. Share fried cornbread. Listen to music on the breeze as they call his Irish name, Liam Og. I have a second one about our Irish travellers. Now, they would be an indigenous ethnic cultural group who have always lived a nomadic life in caravans, but great efforts have been made to encourage them into the settled community. And I have a prose poem here dealing with that. It's called Tethered Nomad. They will not be towing me away from here, where the walls are thin and the neighbours near, where neither Gaelic nor Shelta is spoken. My pony could not survive in this handkerchief garden, but I have my dog and my memories. Using wheels from prams, we'd make go-karts and fly down the hills, ignoring the cuts and bruises. My father brought us road bowling out to Waterloo on Sundays after Mass. I loved the shouting, the betting, the lofting, the grassy sops marking the road. I miss the sound of rain on the roof of the wagon, the buzz of a sulky race on a good coloured colt, the pull of the road and the wind on my face. He taught us how to hunt with a whippet, the best dog for catching rabbits, a lurcher for hares. Sometimes he would cross a greyhound with a Saluki and get the best dog of all, the Arabian Saluki. The butchers paid us for rabbits, but in the end, Kerry was the best place for travellers to make a living. Picking periwinkles on Banna Beach when the tide was out, filling buckets with holes to drain. That paid €120 per hundredweight. Tinsmiths we tinkers were by trade. But who needs tin now? I am filed under settled. Thank you.
That is Mona Lynch, everyone. And two very strong poems. Thank you for those words, stories. Well, again, we're gonna definitely be on time today, which is awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna close us out with a poem. I want to also thank everybody who's been just so kind and supportive as I've been bringing out my new collection, The Glass Studio. You'd think that I'd read one from The Glass Studio, but I'm not going to, actually. I'm going to read a newer poem in kind of in support of, in honor of kind of women and what they do and have endured. And there are some references to different kinds of violence. So if you do feel that you might not want to hear that, can encourage you to just, you can mute your sound for this final poem. It's called Apology Go Round. An apology to my friends who never lived as children, who emerged from chambers they renamed any word they could to survive. Here's an apology because they waited, clenched and silent, for some Coney Island Houdini to unlock the literal or figurative doors to their cotton candy liberations. Which adjective is like asking any small child whether she wants to risk the rabid whip or bear the wall of death? A girl cannot simply choose from within a body that's become a straitjacket encased in glass, or while hands too familiar cuff her throat. When asked on random days if they'd like silly putty or a slinky, these girls say nothing at first, shocked that they might receive anything resembling toys at play after so many days they've tried not to count. So here's my umpteenth apology to those girls gifted jump ropes that lash the school's pavement, double dutching as the cords that bound their wrists. Here's an apology to those wrists, red welted and tucked airtight inside their sleeves. I would kiss their tender undersides if I thought for a minute I could turn back all the broken clocks, if my lips could reword the unspeakable, if even this humble, jumbled apology could make any sense. I would fill their rooms with every model of easy bake ovens, with sock monkeys, with whammo wheelos and butterfly yo-yos for eternity if cramming their rooms full might set the emergency brake on the hours of relentless nights that bled into days, each morning a tiny wind-up victory. And what anything I would give if the price for a ticket on that ride to absolute healing wasn't an absolute scar. But there is no Cracker Jack prize I can give a woman now but to honor her story. So here's a final apology to those scars and these girls who heard themselves cry, "Stop," when the carnival ride operator kept cranking the speed, never giving them the smallest hope of getting off. Here's to how they got off. Revolted the gaudy spin of those porcelain painted merry-go-round animals, the organ's hurdy-gurdy clamor resembling no tune they could sing. Here's to every whole note of every one of their original songs. And here's to the inclusion of healing and hope, and for all who endure too much. We've heard many stories of the need to speak of inclusion comes from a too strong history of various oppressions. I am very grateful for all today who shared your poems of inclusion. And at the top of the hour, we heard from Diana Dark, Ken Burch, Mary Ellen Talley, Billy Brown, Glenda Cimino, Don Krieger, Isaac Cohen, Frederick Livingston, Max Vandersteen, Mike Jurkovic, Maeve McKenna, Dianne Knox, Catherine Ronan, Mona Lynch, and a poem from yours truly. Folks, would you please unmute and show your appreciation for this most inclusive and power-filled group of astounding humans who shared with us today. Thank you, everybody.
No, well done.
Bravo.
Good job.
Bravo all.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Thanks to
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Eugene,
Well,
Great poems.
Depth of
Wonderful,
heart.
wonderful. Nice
Yeah.
one.
Depth of heart. Woo.
Nice cut.
Thank you. Well, folks, we will be back next Sunday on March 10th for our new book showcase for the month of March. We'll be featuring 4 poets, and if you have not heard them read before here on Cultivating Voices or elsewhere, I strongly encourage you to cancel whatever plans you have. We will be having Sudeep Sen joining us from India. Susanna Case will be with us from New York. We will also have Indran Amirdanayagam, amazing translator and poet, very prolific, very powerful. And now I can't believe it. Kim, help me out. I just lost in my head our 4th reader.
Susanna Case.
Oh, I said Susanna Case.
Yeah.
Sudeep,
Sudeep
Indran.
Sen, Martina McGowan.
Oh,
Indran.
Martina! Oh my gosh!
You didn't forget. You're just swooning.
That's it. It's all about the swoon here on Cultivating Voices. My apologies, Martina. Just
It is. What a lineup. That's all
what
you
a
can say.
what
a
can
lineup.
what can we say? With their new books, join us. We'll have the links to purchase. We'll have the love to share and the support. It's no easy feat launching a new book, and so we so appreciate being able to be a platform that will allow us to help support the poets. Again, that is next Sunday here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Well, again, that's it for today. I'm your host, Sandy Yannone, and as I always say at the end of every program, be safe out there. Take very, very good care of your beloveds. Take exceptional care of yourself. And look at what happens when we keep writing. So just keep writing, my friends. I'll be joining you back from the East Coast next Sunday. Have a fantastic, peace-filled week.